Hello, my name is Brian D. Meeks. Welcome to Snarktown, USA. Tonight, we continue reading from Underwood, Scotch, and Rye. This is a little bit longer chapter, a lot more voices to do, so I'm not sure how consistent I'll be, but I'll do my best. Chapter 7. Mary raised her glass and said, "Here's to the start of a wonderful new semester." David Weaverson said, "A clean slate of young minds is always an exciting thing and worthy of a toast." To a clean slate. The mood was jovial and the conversation light-hearted. When the dinner plates had been cleared and the tiramisu had been set before her guests, Mary said, "I hope you all have enjoyed yourselves, but truth be told, I have an ulterior motive in inviting you here this evening." Mr. Evans said, "How ominous and delightful! After such a delicious meal, I am more than willing to do your bidding." "Thank you, Mr. Evans. As you all know, well, all of you except our newest colleague, Mary." "Our newest colleague," Mary said with a smile, nodding towards Dr. Emily Bird. She continued, "We have a faculty member who is a constant source of embarrassment for both our fine college and all who devote their lives to making this the best institution of higher learning possible. He mocks all that we hold dear." Dr. Weaverson and Mr. Evans nodded with understanding. Emily Bird asked, Who is this professor?" "Arthur Byrne." The writer?" "The skirt-chasing drunk is a more apt moniker. As far as I know, he hasn't written anything in over a decade." Mr. Evans asked, "Now, how can we help, Mary?" "I'm not asking you to do anything unseemly. Just attend his class tomorrow and write a brief summary of his performance." Is that all?" he asked, then added, "You didn't need to wine and dine me for that, but I'm glad you did. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't bother to get out of bed." 8 a.m., Peterson Lecture Hall. Dr. Weaverson, sitting between Mr. Evans and Dr. Bird, said, "By my watch, it's time for class to begin." "It figures." Mr. Evans jotted a note. A nervous-looking woman peered from behind the curtain. Dr. Weaverson asked, "So tell me, Emily, how are you settling into our little community?" It's lovely. I especially like the bookshop on Main, and the student union is impressive for a school of this size." Mr. Evans said, "Yes, and we are quite proud of it. I chaired the fundraising committee that got the ball rolling." Mr. Evans did yeoman's work in rounding up donors. The din of chatter calmed as a woman approached the lectern. "Hello, my name is Wen Hu. I'm one of the TAs for the semester. Dr. Byrne will be here shortly. Until then, why don't I introduce the others?" 5 minutes passed. Wen was running out of song and dance. She kept looking to stage left, which did little to persuade the class that Dr. Byrne was actually on his way. At 10 minutes past 8, she returned to the microphone and said, I think we should just..." A booming voice from the middle of the auditorium said, "Don't be so hasty." Wen looked at the crowd, and with some relief, "Dr. Byrne!" and started to clap. Nobody knew what was going on, but a few students clapped too. Arthur removed his hoodie and stood up. "We live in a new era," he said as he walked to the aisle. "When Gutenberg invented his printing press, it brought the written word to the masses. No longer were books the domain of the privileged. Heads turned and people craned their necks to see Arthur speak. He continued, "Media has, for centuries, been controlled by a few. The gatekeepers, if you will, deciding what is news and what is unworthy. They wrote the reviews, told us which plays to see, warned us when Mother Nature was on the cusp of a hissy fit." Arthur didn't head for the stage, but walked up and down the aisle with the showmanship of P.T. Barnum. A phone rang, and a nervous voice said, "Sorry, sir, I thought it was off." Arthur didn't miss a beat. What would Alexander Graham Bell have thought, were he with us today? To see his idea flourish to become not only an integral part of our lives, but almost an extension of our bodies. What is your name, young man?" he asked, making his way toward the student. David, sir." Arthur chuckled. You may call me Arthur. Sir seems a bit too formal. Who was calling you, David?" There was a long silence, and he said, My mother." A few awes could be heard, but mostly laughter. Another voice yelled. Mostly laughter. "Everyone loves a call from Mom," Arthur reassured him. Another voice yelled. "You've never met my mom." There was more laughter. I stand corrected. That's why we are here, because social media has the ability to wrest the power of truth from the few and give it to the world. You are the media of the future. You are the keepers of what will be consumed. You, my bright-eyed lads and lassies, he said, donning a Scottish accent, shall shepherd in the next evolution of society. Someone yelled, "Amen!" Another round of laughter erupted. Arthur climbed to the stage, walked the length, and walked back again. I see we have several distinguished faculty members with us today, no doubt concerned about the heresy I might be preaching, for we are part of the ruling class. We tell you what to think, but what if we simply taught you to think for yourselves? What if we showed you how to make your college days more than beer and football? What if we explored Facebook and Twitter and dug beneath the surface? Arthur preached and took a moment to let the silence shroud the room. With a softer voice, he asked, "How many of you are on Facebook?" Almost everyone shot a hand in the air. "How many of you are on Twitter?" Over half the hands came down. "How many of you know exactly what you are going to do with the rest of your lives?" All but a few of the most optimistic hands disappeared. Arthur continued to pace. He brought his voice back up to theoretical levels and said, "It looks like there are 80 young minds who managed to get out of bed at this unholy hour, which means that about 20% of this class didn't. I applaud you all. For your first assignment, and mine, we, and I mean we, are going to create new Twitter accounts. I know there are some of you who probably have put in a fair amount of effort, don't want to start anew, but today we begin a journey together, so we all start from scratch. If you need to, go get a new Gmail account. I got mine last night. My Twitter handle is @extraambivalent. All you need to do to get the first 20 points of this class is set up an account, write a clever bio, and follow me. Now, there are likely those among you who are ambitious. If you want to earn the easiest extra credit ever, just follow your fellow classmates new accounts. Oh, and one more thing. The 20 points is only good for the next 24 hours. Make that 28-ish. My crack team of TAs will go through and count how many of your fellow classmates you've followed. Spontaneous chatter rose up from the crowd. Wynne stood, but Arthur gave her an "it's okay" look, and she sat back down. He let the murmur continue as he made his way to the front of the stage. Arthur stopped and reached into his pocket. He took out his phone and gave it a quick glance. I've actually forgotten. I love my writing. I kind of forgotten all that was in this scene, and I love this bit. A smile crept across Arthur's face. Is there a Josephine here today? A woman with long, chocolate brown hair raised her hand. She was sitting in the first row and smiling. She held her phone in hand. Josephine, can you guess why I've called out to you today? Because I just earned 20 points. Yes, it is. In the brief time I was blathering on about how class works, Josephine set up an account, followed me. Social media is that easy. Any questions? Why is social media important? Someone yelled out. That's really two questions. Why is it important on a macro scale? The more interesting question is, why is it important to each of you? We will study the former over the rest of the semester, but the latter is easy. Mr. Evans scrawled notes while Dr. Weaverson sat with arms crossed, shaking his head at every opportunity. Emily seemed to be playing with her phone. And not really paying attention. Arthur continued. Most of you have indicated that you're unsure of what the future holds. But whether you leave here and practice law, become a rocket scientist, or find yourself as a low-level manager in a cubicle of death, knowing how the world works and being able to reach into the depths of the dregs that fill up the World Wide Web and retrieve something of value, or, better yet, demonstrate that you have people's ear, will help you get beyond the mediocrity of your fellow classmates and truly grab that brass ring. A hand went up. Yes. I never understood why one is grabbing a brass ring and not gold or something like that, an anonymous voice asked. A bit off topic, but in the days of your grandparents, before the Xbox, people went on dates to places like Coney Island. There, one would find a merry-go-round, and if one leaned really far out, a brass ring could be grabbed, and later redeemed for prizes. But it took courage. Basically, it means sticking your neck out to try to impress the girl you just blew your entire paycheck on. Okay, that isn't exactly what it means, but you get my point. Without risk, there is no reward. Despite what you may have learned from watching reality TV, I mean, do you really want your success to come from being named Snooky? Snooky rocks, came a voice from the back. Arthur grinned and looked at Wynne, who was now sitting in the front row. He said, Please find that misguided youth, explain the error of his ways, and deduct 2 points from his grade. Everyone laughed. I'm just kidding, as far as the students know. The point I'm trying to make is that this semester we are all going to build something. We're going to use the tools that the evolution of our society has given us and craft something more valuable than the sheepskin you'll frame after graduation. We're building a giant microphone so that each of you may be heard. Another hand went up. Yes, the young man with the Cubs hat. Can you explain how the grading will be done? Each student will be judged harshly, and those found to be worthy will receive a mark commensurate with their performance. All but a few of the faces were blank. A few looked frightened. It will be points, standard, 90%, 80%, etc. It is explained in the syllabus that my team of TAs will hand out. He checked his phone and said, It seems a young woman named Emily has gotten a jump on her homework. Emily, would you mind standing up? Said, I'm not sure that young is appropriate. I'm not really a student. I'm just might have to audit your class. As long as there is a seat, you are welcome. In 3 months, we will change how you think about the world and more importantly, how the world sees you. With that, I'll see you all Friday morning. TAs, unleash the syllabi. Arthur walked off stage right. Every student stood and cheered. Dr. Weaverson said, Oh, what a dreadful display. Mr. Evans stopped writing long enough to say, It was shameful. He has no regard for proper decorum. Emily said, I liked it. They both gave her a weak smile. Arthur didn't return to his office after his exit, and there were 3 hours to kill before his next class. He wanted a drink. The cheers were intoxicating, but their echoes took him back to the last time he had lectured in front of so many. The air had seemed too heavy to breathe. 400 students and faculty showing their appreciation as he walked on stage. For 3 days he'd fussed over his speech, only to have it all vanish like a morning mist the moment he got to the microphone. She wore a maroon silk top and sat in the front row. Her angelic eyes and unwavering support had kept him at the typewriter day after day until finally he had written the end. She found the publisher, too. He found new words and said them to her. It didn't matter if everyone else listened, and it didn't matter if everyone else listened in as he did. It had been the happiest time of his life. It hadn't lasted. The adoration became a habit he fed in ways she couldn't live with. When it was gone, he turned to drink. Last he knew, she had given up on life and gotten married, happily. The arboretum was nice. Arthur contented himself watching squirrels. They seemed to be in fine spirits. That was chapter 7, and one of my favorite chapters. I don't know how much you care about my thoughts on the book, but I really enjoyed writing this character. He's a lost soul. He's an anti-hero. Arthur has devoted the recent part of his life to too much drink and age-inappropriate dalliances. And so, he does have some skills, though, and apparently he's ready to take on the faculty. And he's not going to give up without a fight. We'll see how he does. I hope you'll consider giving this a like, maybe leaving a comment. That would make me incredibly happy. I don't know how I'm doing on the voices. I try my best. That's not really my forte, and it is what it is. YouTube is free. You're not paying for this. You get nothing but the joy of a story, hopefully well told. Thank you for coming to Snarktown. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.